Just gonna start it.
Oh, hold on one second.
Oh, we're live. Hey guys, I'm Karen Hyde, and the person's about to jump in is Rebel. Hey guys, I'm Karen Hyde, and I'm excited to highlight some of our most amazing business owners that will be joining us for Skill with Stability here in Arkansas. And for those of you that were not aware yet, maybe this is the first time that you're watching one of these lives. Skill with Stability is built for business owners who want to grow, but not at the expense of what matters most, right? Not at the expense of their faith, not at the expense of their family or their health, or definitely not their peace, right? So today, honestly, what we want to accomplish in today's spotlight is we're going to be sharing some of the stories. And if you haven't watched the proofs on, make sure to do it because we really have a group of amazing people. I'm really excited. And the truth is, in today's world, it's not enough to just scale revenue. You've got to scale a business that is strong, a business that lasts, a business that stands out. And right now, with AI exploding as it has been, and everybody creating content, one of the biggest questions business owners are facing is how do you stand out when everything starts to sound the same? And that's why I'm excited to spotlight one of our Ability speakers, a great friend and business partner, Brad Paul. Hey, Brad, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. Brad, you are an entrepreneur, an artist, recently an author who's constantly
Mhm.
mixing business innovation and creativity and how to express that. You founded Art and Creative and Verity Software. How many years ago was that?
Ardent was founded 20 years ago, over
20
20
years,
years ago.
over 20 years ago, which is crazy that you have a daughter in college too.
Hmm.
It's insane how yeah, time flies. But beyond business, which is actually one of my favorite parts about you, Brad, you're an award-winning performance artist who literally paints live on stage, right?
That's
Are we gonna
correct.
are we gonna see some of that at Skill with Stability?
I guess you'll have to come and find out.
You'll have to come and find out. We had the pleasure of going through one of our masterminds, and Brad decided, like, I am going to give the presentation and I'm going to paint at the same time. And it was one the most like creative things that I've seen. Like, I don't think I could definitely we were all like, oh my goodness, like what's gonna happen? And I actually have the painting in my house. Like it's in
Mhm.
our living room. So it's something really cool. But your session at Skill with Stability, it's called The Art of Entrepreneurs, Creativity, AI, and the Power of Story. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, today I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. I want everybody to know who you are, the background behind the story that, you're obviously going to share with us at the event and what they're going to take away from the event. So the first thing I want to ask you is in your book, you say that AI is the brush, not the painter. What does that mean and why?
The simplest definition is that AI is just a tool. That only AI can only go as far as we guide it and lead it. And obviously, AI is evolving so quickly, and there's different things that are happening with AI agents, and just at this point, even being able to learn on its own. But at the end of the day, it still takes our creativity and our vision to see it through to the end. And so, a lot of times, it can get you to a certain point, but not finish it. And so, as creatives and as entrepreneurs and as leaders, that's our responsibility to make sure we get out of it what we expect.
What do you think it's the danger of real? Because you know, there's a thing about like using it too much, right? And
Mhm.
I'm curious to hear from your perspective. What do you think is a danger of relying too much on AI for marketing and messaging? As business owners have found that, oh, now I don't need to like be this like amazing writer. I can just go through AI, tell it kind of like what I want it to do. And man, like everybody, I feel like everybody's creating content a lot more now.
So, just something popped into my head randomly. I grew up playing video games, and I worked on the computer and used to do layouts by hand and was very fast on the keyboard. And there was a period of time where being in business and family, you just stop playing video games. And one day I was doing a document, and I just realized I'm way slower than I used to be. And part of it is just that hand-eye coordination that you work over and over and over, and it had slowed down. And so when you stop doing creative things and you stop writing and using your brain, what's going to happen? It's going to slow down. And when you rely on AI so much and you stop using your brain, you become lazy, it becomes lazy. And so how do you keep that active? And so I even find it in my own life when I'm sketching more and doing more art related things, the more creative things happen. But when I get away from it, they kind of suppress, whether that's, uh, ideas and just daydreaming.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you don't feed that part of your brain, it just kind of slowly fades away. Kind of like when you go to the gym. If you don't
Yeah.
exercise, you lose muscle mass.
I was doing, I don't know if you remember, but I was doing this like 30-day challenge of doing like 10 posts a day for 30
Hmm.
days and, showing how, Facebook, if you go to one of the of any profiles that maybe right now, because it was updating it for a little while, but one of the things that they're highlighting as part of their metrics is how many pieces of content you're doing, right? How many posts you have
Hmm.
been doing. So there's a thing about this quantity, not necessarily the quality, right? Like that Facebook's really focusing on. They want to, if they were to, let's just say, use the analogy that JC sometimes uses, like if they're a drug dealer, right? If Facebook is, wants you to keep being active in there, obviously they want you to like be consistent in giving that
Hmm.
drug, right? And so like that would be content in this case. One thing that I realized as I was doing it is that the only way that I was able to like get so much content out was obviously leveraging AI. So I would have the idea and then I would just ask AI to write it and then I would edit it. But really the main thing was part of that. I really felt after those 30 days that I got really good initially before I started the 30 days. I really got good at like being able to have an idea of something that happened during the day and then being able to like translate that in the written form. This is my second language, right? So obviously there's a lot
Hmm.
better people writing, but I was able to like get a really good hook, at least for my opinion, just like I was able to do that. And then after the 30 days, I really struggle with getting that hook, like I was just like my brain, like you're mentioning, just like became lazy. How do you think after that, like I've been struggling with like, how do I use it? Do I not? To what extent? It really is a struggle for me now. But how do you think leaders and business owners can leverage AI, can leverage things that, for copywriting without losing that humanity, without losing like their uniqueness?
I would say for things that you don't like to do, it's amazing
Yeah.
and it speeds up that process. And for me, it actually can be a great tool for create. I'm not a necessarily, I wouldn't say I'm a great writer. I've gotten better the more and more that I've written because I write a weekly email to staff. And when I started, it was probably horrible. But now that I've done it for probably 5 years, my writing's gotten better. But what's also made it better is a way I use chat or Gemini or those is I typically write my content and then
Hmm.
I'll put it into AI as more of an editing feature. And then, hey, how would you enhance this? And how would you make it better? But that's also teaching me how to become a better writer or how to become a better creative.
Mm.
What it's also done is things like deep research is what are things that I can learn faster that would have taken me ages before, and so really it's just a major resource that can enhance our creativity and our imagination if we let it. And so the thing that I've been doing a lot lately is like videos, animations
Uh-huh.
can take a lot of time and they're not there maybe yet where, but simple animations that could take several hours you can do in minutes and you can test and play with what works. That's what's exciting and that can feed that creativity.
Well, and going back into just using that creative side, obviously you are an artist, but you're also a business owner. So you're dabbling, you're balancing, both sides of that. Was there a moment where you realized that like your creativity wasn't just, like something that, oh, like it's nice, it's like one of my skill sets, it's something that I like to do, but it actually became your competitive advantage in business?
That's a good question. Um, I think a lot of it just stemmed from when I just first started because, I mean, as a graphic designer, you go and you listen to a client and you try to capture what they're trying to communicate and then illustrate that in different ways. But as I've gotten farther along in business, and especially as Facebook came along and AI came along, that the creativity came more paramount because when you look at content, if you're posting 10 times a day, Are they all the same? Is there something different? And you hear the old saying with AI, garbage in, garbage out. And that's where
Yeah.
that advantage really came to fruition, because you can post 10 times a day. And I saw a lot of your posts. They were different, they were great. But a lot of people, they post like these books of content. And
Yeah.
to me, I'm not going to read all that content. And, it screams AI. And so for me, there's a rub because I tend to be a little more relatable and personal. So if you go to my LinkedIn, it's much more what's happening in the moment versus, hey, here's 30 days of content that I created, so I'm just going to spin it up. And
Yeah.
so, for example, yesterday, one of our partners, Vinny, we had a conversation about AI and the site trust, but then also Dr. Attaway talked about pressure. And so my post today
Hmm.
was about pressure because that was very relevant to things that we're dealing with as a team, and how do you handle pressure as an entrepreneur and leading employees. And a lot of times that's where you step back and just set and really lean into that pressure a little bit, and it takes a little creativity sometimes to work through that and handle it, but it is a choice. And so but back to your question, I think a lot of it revolved around just seeing what was happening, even with Facebook ads all looking the same. And so if you want to stand out, you got to do something different. And that's the same with print ads. If you remember old magazines, if all the ads were white, what do you think
Yeah.
I would design? I would do something in black or colored so it would
Yeah.
offset, so attention grabbed it. And so I
Yeah.
think that with AI, that's where we're headed to, is differentiating from the noise.
That said, like you're very aware of that, and I think because you're constantly balancing those sides, a lot of leaders and business owners right now are not there yet, right? Like they might not be
Mhm.
treating this creativity and the things that you're mentioning there, or maybe they're treating as like a nice to have instead of like that strategic advantage, right? Why do you think that happens? Like, what do you think they're still not leveraging that creative side of their business and positioning that in what they are doing, whether it's content
I
or whatever they may be in their positioning, right?
I think a lot of it is they don't think they're creative, or they have other people that are
Mm,
doing it. But when you actually talk to entrepreneurs that are successful and you really listen to them, it's their creativity and their imagination that's really leading the way. So where does your vision come from? It doesn't come from necessarily data or analytics. It comes from being able to read between the lines and see what's not there. And that's the
mhm,
creativity and that's the imagination. And that's what sets great leaders apart from employees or just anybody else that's just doing a job. And so I think the more you lean into that, the better. And as entrepreneurs, if you don't think you're creative, that's a part of the session. And what I talk about is we're all creative. It doesn't matter if you're an attorney or a CPA, and got a good friend that's a CPA and he's like, I can't do any art. And I'll be like, well, can you draw a stick figure? Anybody can do a stick figure. And as with any muscle, the more you train it, the better you get. And one day he made the comment, he can look at anybody's books and numbers and tell them what they need to tweak in their business to become successful. And I'm like, that's it. That's what I'm talking about. Being able to see things that other people can't is a different type of mindset.
is there, and actually maybe we can talk a little bit about what you're going to be teaching during your session. Is there going to be like an exercise, or what are you planning on doing with everybody that's coming during Scale with Stability?
I think the big thing is just really leaning into how to hone in on that creativity, how to think outside the box. What are some things that you're struggling with within the business and how to solve for that? And we're all dealing with something. And if there's if you can find a way to get past the block and see through it, that's the goal of the session. So when you leave, you're walking away with some action items that you can actually work on that are going to impact the things of the business, whether it's how to communicate, because
Mm,
communication is a form of creativity, and being able to communicate to your team certain things that they follow your vision and they can get upon it. It could be as simple as setting up the foundation of a weekly email, because we've gotten more
mm,
from that than almost anything else. And other than a few people we've hired, I would say 100%. I mean, really, all of our team has been with us for over 5 years, and a bunch have been with us for over 10 years. And one of the biggest issues with companies is that employee churn. Somebody
Yeah.
leaves, you got to bring somebody in, and that's costly. And so the more
Yeah.
you can do to retain that is important. So everybody has different things. So just kind of walking through that with each member so that they do have something they can leave with that impacts their business.
I'm curious because you're mentioning this letter, and I know that's not related necessarily to your topic in the presentation, but I'm curious, what have you seen as like the takeaway or result of like 5 years of investing, a weekly message to your team?
The first thing, I probably would have never written a book if I didn't start that, because it was
Really?
just
Why?
consistently, well, it was just getting used to the fact that, oh, I can write
Oh, yeah,
and I can do this. And then the other thing is just learning to communicate. So I had
yeah,
to take thoughts and put it on paper. And, I can talk to anybody about anything, but it's a little different when you're writing because you overthink it and things like that.
yeah,
And so the biggest takeaways is being able to highlight employees periodically and call them out in a good way, but celebrate the wins every week. A lot of times as business owners, we're just in the grind and we don't slow down to recognize the wins. We see the failures and problems that happen. And I think
yeah,
that's one of the biggest issues with a lot of our meetings, if you're doing EOS or other things, you're
yeah,
focusing on all the goals, but typically the issues are the things that take precedence. But the
yeah.
more we can focus on the good things and the things that we're excelling at, like being creative and solving problems, that takes a different type of mindset and a little bit of the pressure off of what you're doing.
That's so true. I mean, that's a great idea. I feel like that's something that we should definitely implement. Thank you for sharing that. Now, let's talk about the painting while you're doing a presentation or painting while, you're just like live. I feel like that relates a lot to business, because when you're doing that, and I've seen you do that, and I've seen you do that while you're like talking. So you're like literally thinking while you're doing, and you're sharing what you're thinking. And a lot of the times you're like, I don't even know what this is going to look like
Mhm.
at the end. I feel like that relates so much to business. We're all doing this work, and it's an ongoing process that we'll probably never know the impact of our businesses, like far
Mhm.
beyond the revenue and the clients that we have, like the real impact of the businesses that we have. Um, how do you do like what goes through your mind when you're and what are your thoughts, and like that comparison between like business and going through it, doing a live painting and not knowing how it's going to turn out?
I've never thought about what's going through my mind, but I guess the first thing that came to mind is why am I going blank? Inside Out movies. And you've
Yeah,
got one of the characters where they're like crazy. Because, when I did that at one of our last meetings and I'm speaking,
yeah,
I've painted with speakers, I've painted with music, I've done it from 5 minutes to an hour. So they all pose a different challenge. But trying to run slides and speak and paint at the same time was a challenge. And so when I was doing it, I started out and I was all into what I was sharing and I felt great about what I was sharing. But then I was like, oh no, I'm supposed to be painting what I'm talking about while running slides. And I actually said, I'm kind of winging this because I've never done it before in that fashion. And it taught me a lot. And I think as entrepreneurs, a lot of time, or just people in general, we're scared to take a step and do something different, even if it means we're going to fail. And I think overall, from beginning to end, I wouldn't call it a failure, but it was a learning experience. If I was critical, I mean, I could be very critical of the process, and we've had that conversation of how to make it better, and that's just going to come with practice. But if I didn't step out and actually try it, I would have never known how it should flow or how to get better at it. So as I continue to mold the speaking and painting together, it's only going to get better, and I'm going to learn where the flaws are. And if something fails, like the painting wasn't perfect, and then when I finished, because of
I
just
think
doing
it
it
was
so
perfect.
fast and
I
on the
love it.
fly, yeah, and I was able to kind of make it fix it a little bit, but that's the beauty of the painting is that not all my paintings are perfect, and I've done some I've painted with some very well, one in particular, very famous people, and one of the paintings I did I felt was awful, and but they're in the moment, they see it, it's different than what I would expect, and so there's a story behind it, and there's a beauty in that failure, and so I think that's the thing as it relates even to business and the creativity is having that mindset to know that all the things that we're dealing with, good and bad, are meant to lead us into that next level. And so you hear phrase in churches and Christianity. If it was for one, was it worth it? The sheep mentality. Would you save it? And I think the same thing can apply for business. Is that a lot of times we focus on the failures, but not that win, not that thing that we were really called to do. And if we actually focus on that, we're going to have a lot more freedom and less pressure to continue to build our businesses because we're taking it from a position of growth versus and positivity versus negativity.
I'm curious, Brad, because, obviously this conference specifically targeting, faith-driven business owners. And as you're talking about the complexities of business and we talk about faith all the time in the mastermind. Like yesterday you said one line, it was even in the comments that another member like started, just like got very emotional, just like those are the little detonators, I guess, or just like positive triggers in my opinion, that can spark change and can spark a lot of like emotions. How have you mixed and this like concept, because it can be a struggle for some business owners of mixed this concept of like my faith and what I believe in the values
Mhm.
with like knowing that I have to run a business where not everybody, maybe my teammates, my clients are not of the same belief system. How
Mhm.
have you mixed that? What are some of the things that you have found in this journey as a business owner?
It's a great question. I never set out to run a Christian company. Now, our leadership team is primarily Christian, but we have people from all walks of life. And I've never run it as if, hey, we're a Christian organization and you have to be Christian. One of our employees is an atheist
Mm,
and he's been with us for over 10 years now. And there was a
mm,
period where it was difficult, but I learned to communicate and I learned his heart without going into that long story. And one of the best things that ever happened is at Christmas time, we were doing bonuses and we had envelopes. But what I wanted to do was highlight something specific about each person. And so this is where that creativity comes into play and really highlight, okay, what did they do or what are they great at and really lift them up around that time. As we went through everybody, everybody had something awesome that we shared about. So this atheist guy comes up to me afterwards and he goes, Brad, Ardent is the best place I've ever worked at. He goes, when you talk about family and these things, you mean it. He's like, if I have to do something for my family and I have to step away from work, it's like, I just need to get my work done and I can handle it. And so for me, I was like, that's what it's about is seeing the daily walk versus, hey, Bible thumping or hey, this is how it's supposed to be. Now, as it relates to some other things, like with the book is primarily an entrepreneur book, but I'm in the process of just adjusting it or making kind of a revision to it where there's scripture and some pieces that really highlight that God is the point, is behind our creativity, that it's not just a human thing. And so I didn't do that the first time, but now I kind of feel led that that's really a piece that I need to lean into more as I continue to evolve as a business leader.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Is the legacy, right? Like the lives that we
Mhm.
touch. And sometimes that can get, very complex, because you're obviously running a company that needs to focus on specific metrics to grow. Um, but yeah, it's that reminder. I think that has been very helpful for
The one thing
anybody
we
that,
try not
yeah,
to do
go ahead.
is talk about the one thing we try not to do because it's where you get the most contention is talk about politics.
Oh, for
And
sure.
so that's typically off. I mean, it
Off
does
limit.
come up and
Yeah.
sometimes we'll tease about it, but most people know where I stand and most people know where everybody
Yeah.
else's stands. So you don't have to get into that.
Yeah, I agree for sure with that. For those that are thinking about coming that haven't gotten your tickets, we have still 15 tickets left for the VIP. The VIP is one of I think one of my favorite, like the whole event's going to be an amazing experience. But if you do want to get your VIP, this is kind of like the last times that you're going to be able to do it. As soon as they are gone, they're gone. It's just the time that we have limited in there. What would you say, Brad, to anybody that's still thinking about coming to the event? What are your like one piece of advice that you would have for those that are attending and then those that are like still thinking about coming?
What are you waiting for? I mean, I would say I've been to a lot of conferences, whether masterminds or events. And for the content and the value that you get, I don't think there's anything better. I mean, when you look at the speaker lineup and you look at even just some of the people that may not be named, from Jonathan Mast or Jeff Hunter, Jay Vix, a bunch of those people. They all have different aspects of what they're working through in business, and you're going to walk away with something that's going to really take your business to the next level. And so, if I think you don't attend, then you're going to miss out on some great opportunities, because 2026 is already starting off with a bang. And so, I think it's only going to continue to get better. And so, this could be that launching, or if you come, will be a launching pad for what's next.
You heard it, guys. Make sure that you join us and join Brad's session, because I think, like you mentioned, even if you don't see yourself as a creative person, like you probably are. It's just like a matter of like really finding that opportunity for you to showcase that to yourself first, like to like find the way to be that, and see how God can talk to you and your business and what you're doing through, just for sharing this with us. I know that everybody's going to get so much value from your session, and I cannot wait to see everybody there. So make sure to go to scalability.com/summit. You'll be able to ask questions about the different tickets that we have. What are the opportunities for the rest of the sessions, and keep watching the spotlights just so you can pick the tracks for you during those 3 days. So thank you so much, Brad, and I'm excited to see you soon.
Excited. Thank you.
See ya.